What is up, my friends? How are we? I hope you're in good form. It's a brand new week here on Anfield Agenda, and of course, we are counting down to the Reds game against Crystal Palace in the League Cup, which is Wednesday, 7:45. We will be live from 6:30 with our watch along, and the good news, well, at least I hope it's good news, is that the preview will be coming out tonight at 10:45. We're going to talk about that game. We're going to talk about the changes in the Premier League with regards to the way teams are setting up and playing, how important set pieces are. A little bit from Jamie Carragher. We're going to talk about a lack of leadership, and this isn't my words, by the way. Wayne Rooney's been talking about what he thinks is a problem for the Reds, and we're going to discuss that. We'll talk about this crazy new stadium that's been lined up for Saudi Arabia, the betting scandal that's happening with Turkish football, and a little bit around the personnel, of course, for the game on Wednesday. So, last night was an interesting stream, and I appreciated everyone that joined us for it. I wanted it just to be a stream where we all got a chance to vent and have our say, which I think we did, right? So tonight, let's look positively forward and see what we can do to try and stem the flow of this, well, terrible run of results that we've been in. We'll also discuss the 11 you guys think should take to the pitch. We'll be talking about yet another link to Anthony Gordon. 3 of our players have been shortlisted for the FIFA World 11, and we'll talk about another passing, unfortunately, a former Liverpool coach who's passed away. Actually, let's start off with that one if I can. So Liverpool Football Club today announced that it is saddened by the passing of former goalkeeper coach Jose Manuel Ochotorena, and of course everybody associated with us, and I'm sure everybody in the Liverpool fan base, again, pass on their sincere condolences to his family. It's been a difficult time, hasn't it, for Reds coaches and former coaches. Yeah, a couple have passed away recently enough. We spoke about the goalkeeper, or excuse me, I think the kit man with the ladies team, the Matt Beard, the former Liverpool ladies team coach, and of course now the former goalkeeping coach as well. And we do pass on our sincere condolences. Right, so loads of things I want to discuss, but let's start off with what maybe we can expect on Wednesday with regards to personnel. So we've been given a few hints this week. One of the hints is that it looks like Freddie Woodman is going to be starting in goal for this one, which isn't unusual. We often see the League Cup given to either the backup goalkeeper or the backup goalkeeper, because obviously Georgie Mamardashvili's been getting some games. It looks as if Freddie Woodman is going to be given the opportunity. I've no problem with this, by the way, for what it's worth. Personally, I probably would have gone for Georgie Mamardashvili because, again, I think the more games we can see for Georgie, the better. Then we're going to talk about some other personnel changes that we may see. There's a couple of rumours that maybe Calvin Ramsey could be due for a Liverpool start. It's been 3 years, believe it or not, since we've seen the former Aberdeen right back playing for the first team. So there's some talk that maybe Ramsey's going to start. And then we guess because Federico Chiesa is front of the matchday programme, or at least front of Liverpool's advertising for the game, that we probably expect Fede to start in the game as well. But I guess the big question, folks, is what do you do strength-wise? It's always a bit of a roll of the dice to me when you're coming up against another Premier League team, early doors in the League Cup. Both managers kind of have to figure out how importantly they want to take this competition, how strong they want to go with their lineups. And of course, I want to know, do you think that the form we're in now should play into Arne's thinking? Is a victory essential at this point? Or would you be nonplussed if we were to get exited from the League Cup? For what it's worth, for me, I think we can strike a balance between giving some up-and-coming and young players a chance and giving minutes to those who need it. So with my prediction that's coming out later on, I do hope you get a chance to watch it. I try my best to explain my decision-making in it, but of course, would like to know what you guys want to see from the starting 11. Philip McWilliam said, I think we definitely lack power and pace on the side. That's something that I've seen Carragher speaking about as well. It is crazy, though, to see how different the Premier League is this season. It is becoming a more physical and set-piece driven league. Now, I have some numbers tonight. Sky Sports did a very good piece on the amount of long balls and directness that Liverpool have faced this season. So as the stream goes on, I'll talk about that a little bit as well. Joseph said, this might be our only trophy by the way we're playing. Even at that, mate, you can never bank on a trophy, can you? It's always a bit of a roll of the dice. But we are at home, and I think both managers are going to ring the changes. But it's up to each individual person what they think about the League Cup and how seriously they want to take it. For me, it's the least important of the next 4 games that we have coming up. But even saying that, like I've said yesterday and before, winning is a habit. It'd be nice to stay or get back into that habit. But after that, then it's difficult stuff. We've got Aston Villa at home in the Premier League, Real Madrid at home in the Champions League, and then we have an away trip to the Etihad to take on Manchester City. Now, one potentially good bit of news for the Reds is that 5 of our next 6 games are going to be at Anfield, and that should really help us out. So the fixture list is looking like this. Wednesday, 29th of October, Liverpool versus Crystal Palace in the League Cup at Anfield. Saturday, the 1st of November, 8 p.m. kickoff, the Reds against Aston Villa. Tuesday, 4th of November, Liverpool at home against Real Madrid. Then we travel to the Etihad the 9th of November for the game against Manchester City. Then, unfortunately, there's another international break. And then we return with a home game against Nottingham Forest, which is Saturday, 22nd of November at 3 p.m. And then we've got a midweek Wednesday game against PSV Eindhoven at home in the Champions League. Matt, I love this channel, but I have to call this out. Yesterday I said SALAH is stubborn, but also that him changing Wirtz to right wing was wrong. SALAH cannot win. I want to just read that again, just so I need to get this one out, mate. I love this channel, but I have to call it out. Yesterday it was said the SALAH is stubborn, but also the changing Wirtz role to the right wing was wrong. SALAH cannot win. So I'm trying to remember the conversation yesterday, Matt. I think, and again, I can't remember 100%, dude, so I'm going off my memory. I think I said something like, Arne told Wirtz he was coming in to be the 10, and he had given him a plan to be the number 10, talked about exactly how he was going to be utilised in that role, and now we've seen him operating on the right wing. And I think what I went on to say was, if you were going to have Wirtz operating on one of the wings, probably should be the left-hand side where he's a little bit more comfortable, and that's where he tends to drift into. Now, like I said, Matt, I'm working off memory here, dude, but two things can be right at the same time. Managers all have a stubborn streak in them, and I've no problem with you disagreeing with me on anything, especially the way you've worded it, dude. You know, it's more than fair for you to have your say. But I think at this point, mate, we're all just searching for answers, Matt, you know, and we get frustrated, and I don't know the answer at the minute, dude. I really don't, you know. The more I've thought it through, the more I've read what others have had to say on it, I really do feel that the problem probably lies more with midfield and defence than it does further up the pitch. But like I said, I do think if you want to get the best out of Wirtz, probably better to play him in the 10 role that he was brought in to do, or operate off the left-hand side. But again, appreciate your feedback, mate, and that was the best of my memory, mate, that I could remember the conversation from yesterday. It's Slot not making his mind up and being stubborn. Won't put Wirtz on the left because he wants to have his favourite Gakpo in, said Frog. Frog Star 62538. Look, I kind of get both points. I kind of get where Matt's coming from, and I kind of get where you guys are coming from as well. Look, when things aren't gone right, you do tinker around with it a little bit. But then I guess the question is how much tinkering around is too much, and it's no problem with a manager searching for answers, as Matt said, maybe, you know, trying to put him on the right. But I don't think he's been able to back that up though, Matt, because it worked. We won the game and kind of reverted back, mate, to a different system. So for me, I just want to talk about defence a little bit more, if that's okay, because I was listening to Jamie Carragher and a few others talk about it, and I think I mentioned this last night, but I only got a chance to watch back Match of the Day on Sunday, and it was very clear how critical they were, particularly of Ibrahima Konate on Match of the Day. And I'm not talking about the pundits, I'm actually talking about the match commentator that was doing it, and Carragher as well, saying that he was culpable for one of the goals. It is really concerning how Konate just looks like at the minute he doesn't give a shit. Now, I'm not saying that that's because he's going to go to Real Madrid or not, but it doesn't look right. And I guess it comes back to not bringing in that centre-back in the summer, which, again, you can have two different views of. You can say we're unlucky not to get Mark Gay the way the window finished, or you can say we should have made that move earlier in the window. And I think there's probably truth in both of those answers. But when I was reading the piece from Jamie Carragher, I kind of got stuck into some of the underlying numbers around what Liverpool have faced this season, and I'm going to get into them in a second, but before I do, just want to say a few things about people in the chat. Just want to say hello to a few people as well. Esther, lovely to see you in as well. Elmir said, who would you take as the new manager if it came to it? I'm still not at the point of thinking about it. Oh, you've actually put this in the super chat as well, dude. So Elmir said, who would you take as the new manager if it came to it? So, sorry to be a broken record and repeat myself, but I haven't really given it much thought because as angry as I am, I do want Arne to succeed. And like I said, the next few weeks will probably be a big factor in where my head's at. Off the top of my head, mate, Iriola is somebody that has been mentioned, but again, that is a big step up for Andoni Iriola to take. You've got the all romantic side as well. You can look back at Jurgen, but I think we need to just look for answers from what we have and figure it out. So yeah, I'm sorry I can't give you a better answer, but really haven't given it much thought about a potential other manager because I do agree with what a lot of others said yesterday in that I can't see FSG pulling the trigger on this one this season full stop. I mean, I don't know how bad it would have to get for them to do it, but I'd be very surprised if they did. Hayden said, I think Mamadashvili Kirkes Virt Frimpong if he wasn't insured. Starts with a few young lads to use the formation for the league. Which one are we at? Are going over 5 mil seems stupid or gay? Yeah, look, it's fair enough. You know, there's definitely something to going and getting them earlier in the window. I do understand where people come from on that one. You know, it was just unfortunate as well, though. Like, we were so close to it happening that I kind of do have some sympathy for everybody concerned. But yeah, if you're lowballing a bit, I kind of get your point on that as well. Matt said, thanks. The defence, whatever happened to the offside trap, Klopp's extra defender. So, we still play the high line, Matt. It's just where second balls, for me, mate, is where we're losing a lot defensively. And I've said this for a few years now. I think we're one of the worst teams out there for directing a defensive header to a Liverpool player. It's almost as if we're just heading it into an area. But I want to back up. I want to back up some of the long balls because, you know, we're obviously very single focused here as Liverpool fans on all things Liverpool. But the numbers do actually back up that teams are playing differently against us and targeting us. Now, again, it's up to Arne and the boys to find solutions to that. But genuinely, the numbers are backing it up. So Sky Sports did a piece earlier on, and they said teams are using more long balls against Liverpool, and they put up a statistic of the team, the opposition, and how many long passes. And Liverpool feature in the top 3. So, the team that played the most long passes this season in a game against another team was Manchester United against us, where they played 75 long passes. Crystal Palace against us, 71 long passes. And Bournemouth against us, 70. So we're the top 3 for facing long passes. Now look, teams are perfectly within their rights to do whatever the fuck they want when they play against us. You know, it's up to us to defend it. But there you can see Bournemouth start of the season. So this was early doors. That was, if I remember correctly, our first game of the season. And Bournemouth were straight in with long balls. So this was a tactic that was being put out there and set out there early by opposition managers because they can see they can get some joy from it. Also, another stat from Sky Sports, Liverpool have faced a league high 571 long balls this season. By far and away more than any other team. Next on the list for teams facing long balls is Bournemouth, then Newcastle, Manchester City and Brighton. But Liverpool are away at the top of that for facing long balls. So I guess the question comes with, if we know teams are going to come and play long against us, how are we so poor at defending it? And how are we not figuring it out? It's not like we have a shortage of aerial prowess amongst our centre-backs. Virgil and Ibu are quite good aerially. So it has to be something to do with second balls, in my opinion. But love to know what you guys think on it. Brian, how are we, dude? Lovely to see you in again. And again, thank you for flying over for the trip to Liverpool. I really, really enjoyed spending time with yourself, Laurie and Vern. I, like you, don't want to react rashly about SALAH. However, his excuses and no solutions offered is concerning, especially with a loaded team. There's something to that, mate. And I've called out the excuses as well. So, for me, Brian, if you look at the difference between what Arne is saying and what Virgil is saying versus what Andy Robertson is saying, it's night and day. Robbo is just calling it like it is. You know, not accepting excuses, talking about the physicality not being there and the hard yards not being run. So, I would listen to that all day over the teams play differently against us, low block, and then Virgil saying block out the outside noise. All that stuff to me, mate, just doesn't sit well, and it feels like excuses. No matter how critical we are of the situation of the manager, I do want to keep re-emphasising that we want it to work. You know, we want Arne to be successful. You don't just go from winning a league and turn on a manager like that, but you also have to have some semblance of fairness in this, and you can't go on forever losing games the way we are. And you can say we're losing them closely by a goal or so, but for me it stems the performances. And this goes all the way back to last season. We just haven't performed well for a very long time. Paul Beer said zonal marking or man marking. For me, 100% man marking, Paul. 100%. I remember, and I've said this many times on the channel, I went to an audience with Rafa Benitez a few years back in Dublin in the Bord Gáis Energy Theatre. And it took somebody from the crowd all of 2 minutes to pick holes in Rafael Benitez's zonal marking system. And I'm talking a genuine, normal fella from the crowd that, you know, I think Rafa wanted to kind of show him that it's not as straightforward as he thinks it is, but your man actually ended up picking holes in Rafa's system very quickly. And that was the night that absolutely convinced me that I hate zonal marking, and nothing has changed about it, because I don't think there's any accountability to it. You know, jumping up and down on your toes and saying, this is my area, I don't care. I'm so old school on this, mate. I'm a big believer in this is your man. If he scores, me and you have a problem. You know, if I'm a goalkeeper, that's the way I'm talking about it. Nomad, 27 months as a member, sir. Thank you. Appreciate that. Lots of love to yourself and Connor. I'm going to the France game, or excuse me, why did I say France? I don't know how I got France out of this sentence, mate. I'm going to the Palace game on Wednesday. It'll be my first game. Well, firstly, Nomad, enjoy it. You're going to love it, man. A night game at Anfield is awesome. Not sure what type of 11 you're going to see out there on the pitch, but again, I hope you have a good result. And most importantly, I hope you have a good trip, mate, because, you know, it is special seeing Anfield under the lights. Robert Reed said, seeing you have the third most views of a football YouTube channel in 2025 and the only Irish one at the top, doing us proud. Yeah, thank you, Robert. So, if you don't know what Robert's talking about, there's an account that every month publishes the highest rated views for fan channels, and we are third in the world behind the United Stand and AFTV, which is, you know, it's incredible for us. You know, we have 450% more views than Red Men TV, which is ridiculous if you think about it. So yeah, man, it's really proud, you know, to be third on that list behind two huge accounts like over 1 million, I think like 2 million in the United Stands. Yeah, very proud day. And you know, like I always say, didn't do it on our own. We did thanks to your support, and hopefully we can keep going. Right, where was it? Stevie boy. Okay, this one. So you never walked alone. Or you never walk alone, excuse me. SD said, high press fails to force opponents' mistakes. I don't even think the press is there though, mate. And that's one of the problems I think that we've had. The press just doesn't look like it's anywhere near what it should be. And maybe that's down to new personnel, because certainly when I look at Isak out there, he doesn't seem to understand what the manager wants pressing-wise. Yeah, Salah, again, his press hasn't been what it would be, but I really don't want to just point fingers at one person to blame on any of this, because I do think it's a system thing, and I think it's an attitude thing more than... It's obviously not a lack of talent, right? The real Johnny Sins, thank you, bro. Appreciate you. Stevie Boy said, can Slot turn it around, or is he clueless? Well, I certainly don't think he's clueless. But can he turn it around? I also don't know if I can give you an honest answer on that, because I'm on the fence on it, mate. I don't know how much of me Stevie Boy wants him to turn it round, which is a lot, and how much of me expects him to turn it round, which truly I don't know if he can or not. It's a funny thing, mentality in sport, isn't it? I've been listening to a lot of former players, Rooney, Neville, talking about when their teams were going through these type of patches where you just don't see it coming, and then things that were coming natural and easy to you suddenly become more difficult, and teams gaining confidence against you, and it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point that we know we're going to be giving up chances from set pieces. So can he turn it around? If he's the manager that we all hope he is, yes. But if he doesn't, it's going to be a tough season for not just him but all of us. I know that was a bit of a cop-out answer, by the way, Stevie boy, but it is an honest one, mate. I hope he can turn it around. I'm a bit less confident than I was a month ago that he can turn it around, but ultimately, he doesn't really have many excuses for not turning it around. He's got the personnel, and it is up to him now to figure it out. Harry Jordan said, we're not out of the title race. So, on the stream title, mate, it isn't me that I'm saying we're out of the title race, although, for what it's worth, I do think we are. But John Aldridge, former Liverpool player, I was reading his piece in The Echo. He always does an opinion piece or two in there. And he said, look, looking at that team, we ain't in the title race. And who could blame him? I understand your optimism, Harry, and it's commendable, but whatever way we look at this, dude, we've turned a 5-point gap over Arsenal into a 7-point deficit in a month. 4 losses in a row. And Jamie Carragher made a damn good point. He said, if Brentford lost 4 games in a row, people would be talking about relegation and be concerned. The champions losing 4 games in a row, I just don't think we have the right to, we don't deserve to talk about a title race at this point, Harry. Let's be realistic about it. We all want it, but it's not a fair conversation. We don't deserve to be talking about a title race at this point because we're so far off it. Wasted the Goat 1 said, Van Dijk saying that we're working on set pieces for a week and still concede them that badly is worrying. It is. And look, I keep coming back to this thing. I don't like a lack of aggression in our team. And I don't like a lack of aggression from our coach. I don't like a lack of aggression from our manager. From our captain. I don't like it. I don't like it from Konate. I just don't like the language. I don't want to call it lazy because I think it's a style thing. I don't like it. I want people on the front foot being aggressive. I want them getting stuck into people. There was a great little bit of highlighting done on Match of the Day. The difference between Sepp van den Berg and Nathan Collins defending versus Konate and Virgil. And they were defending with their lives. They were throwing their bodies at the ball, getting blocks in and celebrating those blocks like goals. That is a stark contrast to the way Virgil and Konate defend, which is no pressure, keep jockeying, and eventually try and push the fella when he's about to shoot. Not good enough. And, it comes back to what Robbo said. If the attitude ain't right, the rest doesn't matter. If you weren't gone out there to fight for the ball, all the talent in the world ain't going to do anything. Because you've got to do the basics right. And we're not doing the basics right. The real Johnny Sin said, we didn't want Barcola at Liverpool. Well, Gordon is a way shitter than him and nowhere near as tricky and threatening, nowhere near as good for Liverpool. So I guess I should give some context to this for what you're saying about Anthony Gordon. So there was a piece that Transfer News Live said, sourcing a source in Spain, that said, Liverpool have identified Newcastle United winger Anthony Gordon as their top target to eventually replace Mohamed Salah. The Reds' analysts and scouts have been closely monitoring Gordon's performances for more than a year. However, Newcastle view him as a vital part of their squad and have made it clear they won't entertain any cut price offers. For what it's worth, I think this is just lazy journalism. I don't think that there is much truth to that. Now, of course, we've been linked with Anthony Gordon for quite a while. But firstly, he'd be the wrong side to be a replacement for Mohamed Salah because I think he operates far better off the left-hand side. So I just don't believe it, mate, in all honesty. I don't think he's going to be that guy. I think the links to Semenyo are far more understandable and realistic, and this just feels like a lazy one, quite frankly. Rowdy Yates, how are you, sir? And thank you for your comment. Said, hey Craig, enjoy the channel. Do we sell Mo and Virgil in the summer? They'll both have 1 year left on a contract, and should we get something for them? We need 3 centre-backs next year. So the answer to that question for me, I can't give you now. But I wouldn't be selling Virgil. And the reason I'm going to say that is because centre-backs can go a bit longer. Now, I'm with you that he hasn't been good enough this season, but I wouldn't be selling him. Not yet. I'd let him see out to 2 years. I don't envision us selling Mohamed Salah unless Mo decides that maybe he wants to try something new. So it's a tough one because there's two ways to look at the Salah situation, and I guess maybe the Virgil situation. The plan should be to ease them out over the next 2 years. You know, I think anybody who's saying that Salah shouldn't be starting every week there's probably some sense to that, because you do have to, one, keep him fresh, so you want to just limit some of the games that he plays to make sure that he's at peak fitness, and then you also want to look to the future. And to look to the future, you have to start succession planning bit by bit. So I do think if they both see out their time, you'll certainly see Mo in particular start to have less and less game time over the next 18 months. And I think that's just normal, and not just based off of poor form now, but just understandable, because you've got to look to the future, and you don't want to suddenly have Mohamed Salah's time at Liverpool finished and just throw somebody else new in there with no cohesion again. We've got to learn that lesson from what we're doing now. Mohammed Akbar, how are we, sir? Said, love your videos, Craig. I watch you every day and your story is very inspiring to me. Keep doing what you're doing, and going to be here at 500,000 subs. Mohammed, that's so kind of you, sir. Thank you. You don't know, mate, really what it means to me to hear things like that. You know, that my little journey's inspired you, and it means more than you'll ever know, mate. It does. So, you know I go off on people that have a pop at me and stuff, but I just want people to know that the kind stuff means a lot as well, Mohammed. So, thank you, bro, and fingers crossed we do see those 500,000 subscribers someday, mate. It would it'd be incredible, and not something I ever thought possible when we started this mad journey. Alan O'Brien said, agree about the centre halves. VVD, bad influence on Konate, awful captain too. Well, while we're talking about Konate, there is, where is it? Bear with me. So Rousing the Cop have said, and Graham Bailey posted this to say, Liverpool are set for key talks with Ibrahima Konate over a contract extension during the November international break. Now, I want to ask you a question that's been playing on my mind a little bit over the last few weeks. Let me write this out and then I'll get into it. Right. I know I'm going to spell this name wrong, so bear with me for a second. Okay. And this. Right, so I've been thinking a lot over the last couple of days about the links to Upamecano and the situation we're in with Ibrahima Konate. So I wanted to ask you guys, which would you rather have? Konate new deal, Upamecano to come in, or neither? Because these are some of the options that Liverpool are looking at the minute, according to reports. So Konate is going to talk about a new contract at Liverpool again. Upamecano, of course, is in a similar situation with Bayern Munich. And I want to know, what would you rather if you had to have one? Konate to sign the new deal, Upamecano to come in, or neither? The legend said, if you lose the City, is your title race done? I would argue that I'm not thinking about a title race now, mate. Because I don't think we deserve to be talking about a title race now. At the start of the season, yeah, with the new players we had in, with the goodwill and with the excitement, yes. But right now, I think it would be just delusional of me to sit here and talk about a title race. But if we lose the City, yes. I mean, you could have a 10-point gap over us at that point. And we're talking about an Arsenal team that are defensively solid and are giving up nothing. So the idea of Arsenal maybe dropping 10 points and us going so unbeaten and so good to claw that back. I just don't think it's a realistic thing to discuss. Truly feel like our best chance of a big one this year now was going to be the Champions League if we can get it together. At Ice TC5VN said we scored the same amount as Arsenal. They're top because of the defence. Our defence costing us, and VVD is the nerve to tell fans to back the team. Well, you're not wrong about the defence costing us, but I would just kind of maybe put another slight slant to this conversation. It isn't just that back five. It's the midfield and the forwards as well. But you're spot on. You know, we went through a number last night. Let me read it back out to you in case you weren't with us. Where was it? It was this one. Liverpool have conceded only 5 teams have conceded more this season than the 14 that Liverpool have allowed in 9 games. And it wasn't until 16 games into last season that we conceded the same amount of goals. Like, that's a piss take. We're conceding 1.5 goals a game, which means to win these games, we're having to go out there and score a minimum of 2. So you're right, mate. Defence isn't good enough, but I don't think it's solely just the personnel in defence. I do think it is ahead of them as well. So, you know, one of the talking points we're going to have in tomorrow night's Anfield Agenda podcast is, do we need that enforcer, that, you know, Rodri type midfielder in there? Do we have to maybe start playing with 2 holding midfielders ahead of the back 4 to try and solidify that defence a little bit? And if so, who is going to be that second one? Do you have to go into the market? I mean, lots of fans on lots of different platforms that I've been reading are, I want to say, angry about the summer transfer business, but they're looking at the summer transfer business and asking why we went so top heavy and we didn't really look to address 2 concerns that a lot of Liverpool fans have had over the last few seasons, which is that extra DM position and another centre-back. And I can't really put up a debate against that. Like, I'm very happy with the business we did do, and, you know, I'm not going to be revisionary about it. I was over the moon with it, but I totally appreciate and understand where they're coming from as well. A central midfielder, I was kind of on the fence with, but could understand it either way. I kept saying if Bajcetic was going to be fit, he may be an option. But the centre-back one, there is no argument for it. We are short there, and we should have brought in another one. Shit Crew said, just isn't the actual defenders though, is it? It's slot system with 8 attackers and 2 defenders. Hasn't worked for almost 30 games. You're right. We need to find a better balance and we need more protection. What I keep coming back to is not really stats, it's just the eye test. And how many times do we give up chances from turning over possession? You know, we conceded another goal in the last game from turning over possession. I dare say if you look back to the ones we've conceded over the last few seasons, many of those chances are coming from us turning over possession in the final third. And there's a really crazy stat that I've seen earlier on, which I actually didn't think was true at first, but it was the amount of chances that Arsenal are giving up. In October, according to Football on TNT Sports, Arsenal conceded just 1 shot on target in the Premier League. Like, let that sink in. Arsenal have conceded just 1 shot on target in the Premier League in October. We conceded that amount in 62 seconds against Manchester United and conceded the goal. So there is the difference between a team that can score 1 and win a game versus us, who are having to score 2 just to be in with a chance because we're conceding an average of 1.5 a game. Ryan said, hey Craig, thanks for being there for me. Had the life-threatening event 6 weeks ago that led to major surgery, on the road to recovery, and love to watch your shows to get me through the tough recovery process. Keep up the work. Thank you, man. I'm glad you're on the road to recovery, Ryan. That's the most important part in all of that, dude. Really appreciate your support as well. But again, most importantly, I'm glad to hear that you're on the road to recovery. So, you guys know my Liverpool chair, the red and white one that I used to use years ago. Maybe you do know it, maybe you don't. But very weirdly, my wife's in a gym and they had Ronnie Coleman, you know, the former bodybuilding world champion, and I've got pictures of him now sitting in my Liverpool chair because he's in a wheelchair at the minute after an operation and he needed a chair for the show, so I loaned him my chair, and it's so cool to know that Ronnie Coleman is now sat in that Anfield Agenda red and white Liverpool chair. Right, where are we at? More comments. We laughed when they bought all those defenders. It's coming good now. Yeah, look, they have depth there. They have depth there. Most importantly, and I keep coming back to this, is what we don't have. It's we don't have competition, and this is something I'm big on. We don't have competition for Salah. We don't have competition for the centre backs, and no competition, in my opinion, just leads to complacency. Whether it's subconscious or not, it's just not good enough to not have competitors for these positions. Midas Media said, "Do you think it's a real possibility Slot is sacked?" Yes, I do, and I have to believe that because if the results keep up and we keep sliding down, I don't know what message it sends. You know, it's one thing having a sticky patch of games and dropping points, but if we continue to lose, and let's look at the fixtures we have coming up, particularly in the league, we Villa at home and Manchester City away. They're not going to be easy games. So if we were to lose both of those, I think certainly FSG have a decision to make. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say 100% he should be fired at that point, but I have said for me, this is kind of going to be where I either throw my hands up in the air and say I don't think he can do this, or whether we start to see signs that he can change it around. It is, as Carragher said, a crisis. Not a blip now, it's a crisis. And look, I can't second guess what the owners will do. You know, we've had the time with Jurgen where we never had to think about a manager being sacked. So will they, after spending what they did, be understanding that there's going to be a passage of change? Or will they look at it and think, well, he's just not doing enough. He's not being proactive enough in making these changes to try and stop this fall. You know, honestly, I don't know if anybody can sit here with any level of confidence and say definitively what's going to happen. We can all think what should happen, but I don't know what will happen. But I'm going to stick to what I said yesterday. You know, Wednesday, it is what it is. I'd like us to get through, but even when times are going well, you probably expect a fairly changed team and you don't really know what to expect. So Wednesday, hope we win, but not going to really change my opinion one way or the other. But Saturday, midweek, Saturday, midweek, Sunday. So Aston Villa, Real Madrid, Manchester City. That is going to define my belief in Arne or not. So if he loses two of those three games, I'm going to say it's time for him to go. But that's my choice. I'm not, wishing it to happen because I don't want it to happen. I want us to win those games. I want him to get it right. But that's my cut-off point at that point, particularly the league games. We've got way more wiggle room in the Champions League. You win most of your home games and you find your way through to the knockout stages. Even with the PSV Eindhoven game coming up, and the fact that we won our last Champions League game, we'll find our way through that. But you lose to Villa at home or, lose to City away, it's a long way back. And then you're not talking about title races anymore. You're asking, are we really going to be able to get Champions League football? Because if you don't get Champions League football, looking at the wage bill and looking at the players we've brought in, it becomes a big problem. But like I said, I'm not going to tell you how to feel. If you want to give him the whole season, I totally understand that. If you're somebody who thinks he wants to go now, or he should go now, I totally understand that. It is a very personal choice. Itachi, I don't get how we've gone from a 5-1 how we've gone from a 5-1 Champions League with a great performance in 4-4-2 back to the same shit. Formation with no plan versus Brentford. I hope it's not because of Salah. Please no. You're not on your own for wondering how we go from that to what we've seen against Brentford. Now, again, want to give Brentford their credit. But it wasn't very hard for them, was it? If you break down as well. And this was a good bit of insight that I'd heard. We got to keep an eye on Mamardashvili because a couple of the balls he was spraying out wide were going out for throw-ins. And if you think about, in the first minute, I think he played the ball out wide that went out for a throw-in. We conceded a long throw-in. Then a few minutes later, he played the ball out to Conor Bradley, which between the pair of them, they kind of messed it up. The control from Bradley and I guess the distribution. And that then led to the long throw in, which conceded our first goal. So there's some things like that as well where just to send it straight back up the pitch. Giving away throw-ins when we know we're susceptible to them is probably a problem. So things like that as well. But I don't understand why we changed it back either, dude. And I don't want to keep making this about Mohamed Salah because he scored in the game. And there's been many games where we talk about Salah not being in it and scoring and making it, a winner for us. So I don't think it was Salah's fault we didn't beat Brentford. I'm looking more towards the midfield and the defence because ultimately we scored 2 goals in that game. And if you're scoring 2 goals away from home in the Premier League, you should be winning that game. So for me, that one wasn't on him. Certainly more on the defence for me. The legend said, do you think we could beat Chelsea's 15-goal season? I really don't know, mate. It's a long, long, long way to go. Your defence is rock solid. You're an Arsenal fan, just in case people aren't sure. And who knows? But I do think right now you are firm favourites to win the Premier League. And I'm just trying to be realistic about that. I'm not trying to put the pressure back onto your shoulders. I'm trying to be honest. And I don't think we should be thinking about title race as Liverpool fans now because I don't think we deserve to think about it. Tilt 810 said, hi Craig, do we know how big Leone is getting on with his recovery? Would have been clutch playing now against long throws and long balls. We're still looking at probably very end of this season or the summer, in all honesty. I don't know if there's a firm time frame on it yet, but I don't think you're wrong either about what you've said about his height and presence being in there as well with dealing with some of these long throw-ins. Just it's weakness. That's it. For the size of Virgil and Konate, I think it's appalling how bad we are. And normally when you're conceding from long throw-ins, it's the second balls. Nobody really scores from the first phase of a long throw-in. It's always the second phase. And we need to be more considerate of who we're putting in what positions there to defend those second balls. Would you take the Crystal Palace manager to arrive at Liverpool if Slot goes? Look, he has a very good track record from winning the Europa League with Frankfurt to winning the FA Cup with Crystal Palace. And what you can say about Oliver Glasner's teams, whether we like the style of football or we don't like the style of football, they're well drilled. And well drilled teams with a good work rate will go a long way. And then you put the talent in on top of that. So would Oliver Glasner be at the top of my list? Probably not, because I don't see him as a progressive enough coach for the way he plays. But maybe he changes a little bit if he does go to a team who wants to be more on the front foot and doesn't play maybe with the counter-attacking pace. Iriola would be more somebody I would think would be a better fit for us. But I hope we don't have to talk about this. I hope Arne figures it out. Nathan said, do you think us losing Johnny Heidinger had a huge impact on the squad defensively? I think we'd be silly not to consider that as an option, mate. We lost Johnny Heidinger. We brought in Van Bronckhorst. And, any manager losing his number 2 is going to be a tough loss for them. And I think it would be foolish of us not to think that Heidinger's absence maybe at least contributes to how poor we've been defensively. Because we certainly know how highly thought of he was inside the axis. So I think, there's probably something to that. Do you think the biggest problem is Konate? The biggest? The biggest problem is... that's... No, I think the biggest problem is the manager. But Konate, of the players, he'd be right up there, yeah. He would. And the main thing about Konate is he doesn't look like he gives a shit at the minute. And this isn't just Liverpool fans saying this. This is pundits and, football commentators saying he just looks like he's half-arsed out there. He gave up the chase with Jota when he was trying to claw back. And then he's been out of position so many times as well. Yeah, I think he's probably, of the playing staff, one of the biggest issues. And again, it comes down to a lack of competition and letting this contract situation get to where it is again. It's Not good enough. We did it with Trent. Now we're looking at it with Konate. It's not good enough. Ex Freestyler. Lovely to see you in, bro. Said Craig, long time supporter of your channel. Appreciate that. You said, I honestly think Konate is a liability at the back. Do you think if we brought in Gay, Konate or Virgil would be benched? Oh, yeah. No. So we had this conversation in the summer where we kind of ran poll after poll saying, what would you do, Konate over Gay? And I was 100% Mark Gay, and I made my point being that I think he's just more solid and more consistent. So if Mark Gay came in right now, I would say the centre-back pairing of choice would be Virgil van Dijk and Mark Gay, and I would dare say we'd be better than we are now. But there's a pair of them in it, and Virgil is that leader. And we keep hearing from Arne about what an incredible leader Virgil is, how outspoken he is on the training ground. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing the ability for him or SALAH, who are the senior players in their dressing room, to grab the game by the scruff of the neck and change it. And that's part of tonight's stream titles, because Wayne Rooney was talking about this on the Wayne Rooney show, and he said for senior players he's disappointed. Now I'm paraphrasing this. He's disappointed in what he's seen leadership wise from Virgil and Mo, and I can't argue with him. He's not wrong. Like, even looking at body language, how often have we seen Virgil with a strap on out there, gesticulating, waving his arms around and having a go at players, even when some of the times it's his fault? So, sometimes I'll sit here and I say I think people are taking cheap shots at Liverpool, but I think a lot of what's coming at us now is warranted, and I think we've just got to take it on the chin and figure it out, because I don't like the body language I'm seeing out there from particularly Virgil. Not so much Mo, particularly Virgil for me. I just don't like that body language, and I don't like the lack of aggression. The biggest problem, in my opinion, is egos and a lack of work rate in matches. I'm not going to disagree with that, Yoz. I think ego is certainly part of this, and whether that's ego from the perspective of players coming in who used to be the guy at their club. And I touched on this a little bit in a stream recently. You've got SALAH, who's the guy at Liverpool. You have Wirtz, who was the guy at Leverkusen. You've got Isak, who was the guy at Newcastle. And you've got Ekitike, who was the guy at Frankfurt. And they're all coming in jostling for position, jostling for seniority, and to be the guy. And that's where I think the ego needs to be dropped. I'm not saying there's anybody coming in there who, isn't trying, but certainly it's a fucking team sport, and there's no place for egos in a team. Your quality tells, as Robbo said, after the hard work. Do the basics right, work your arse off, and then back yourself that your quality shows through. So I spot on agree with you, mate. Egos and a lack of work rate. Yeah, maybe not work rate as much as aggression. FIFA highlights 921 said, honestly, Dom and Jones are putting a good fight and they show huge hunger. Chiesa should play more also. Craig, you're a great Liverpool channel. My name is Daniel. I support you always, and God bless. Well, thank you, Daniel. You're right about the midfielders, and we've highlighted it many times. I'm glad to see somebody else speaking up in defence of Curtis Jones, because I was somebody who was one of his biggest detractors until Arne came in, and I've seen a different Curtis Jones. Somebody who wants the ball, somebody who doesn't hide out there on the pitch. And Dominic Szoboszlai has been nothing short of sensational. So yeah, spot on about those two, Daniel. And what was the other part you said? Chiesa should play more. There has to be something personal that stops Arne playing Chiesa. And it's a big thing to say, but I can't think of any other reason at this point. Because it's been 2 years now where we're into the second season of it. And he had an easy answer last year, Arne, which is, Chiesa didn't have match fitness. Chiesa didn't get game time in the pre-season at Juventus. And he kind of dragged that excuse out all the way through the year. But this summer, again, he had a full pre-season. And the manager's still not using him. And I can't think of a logical reason other than Arne doesn't want him at the club as to why he's not playing him. And, I challenge anybody to give me a good reason as to why he's not getting more minutes from the start. Because if you give somebody chances and they're taking them, which he is, what message does it send by not giving him more minutes? He definitely deserves chances. And I'm not talking about these throwaway games in the League Cup against Crystal Palace. I'm talking about Aston Villa at home on Saturday, Manchester City at the Etihad. Because one thing we know we're going to get from Fede is effort, work rate, and busting a gut out there on the pitch. And I'll take that with a bit less quality, perhaps. I'm not saying he does, but I'll always take work rate and effort over quality every day of the week. Because that's what, under Jurgen, that was our bedrock. We outfought the opposition, and then the class shone through. Stevie Boy said, still believe we need a right back. It's an interesting topic. And I touched on this last night, Stevie Boy. I still don't know if Frimpong was brought in to be a right back or not, and I honestly can't figure that out yet. Bradley has some pros and cons. He is still developing. He isn't physically strong enough. Cara made a good point as well, saying he's getting a little bit too touch tight to people, which leaves space in behind, and he's not backing himself enough to have the recovery. And then if you throw in Konate alongside him, looking as shaky as he has, it's just a recipe for disaster. So it's a difficult one, and I'm still not convinced the manager sees Frimpong as a right back. Somebody touched on something though last night, which has got me thinking. I think with a couple more centre-backs, 3 at the back would give us a far more balanced squad and use of the squad that we have. But again, we've not really seen any indication from Arne that he's going to go to a back 3, other than when we're chasing a game. But if you think about it, Kirkes and Frimpong, or Bradley and Kirkes, as wing-backs, they'd be more suited, especially with Frimpong, than as an out-and-out right-back. Because I don't think Frimpong's a right winger, and I don't think he's a right back. I do think he is that right wing back option, but we don't play that system. So anyway, long way around. Yes, right back still a problem. Brad said, love Virgil to the core, but if he's continuing to act like this, I would consider handing the captaincy to Dom, the only fighter on the team. Much love. So look, I'm not making any calls for Virgil to be stripped of the armband. But what I would say about Virgil is just stop with the nonsense about blocking out outside noise and stop talking about the fans. It's not on us. It's not our fault. You know, fans were the ones who were backing the players last year. The fans were pushing for Virgil and Mo to get their new contracts, and they got them. Fans have been singing their names. Fans have been behind Mohamed Salah inside those stadiums, and Virgil just needs to take some damn responsibility now as captain, like Andy Robertson did, and start to look inwardly, because this isn't a fan issue as much as he keeps trying to talk about outside noise. And this support us when we're down stuff is lazy. It's lazy. Like, I hate this if you can't support us when we win, or if when we lose, don't support us when we win shit that some people throw at us. It's just lazy. This is a two-way street, and you're not going to support a lack of real effort out there on the pitch. And what I've noticed with Virgil is he's very good at sound bites. He's very good at knowing what to say. But words are empty. Actions are what's important to fans. And fans will forgive a lot if they see people out there leaving it all on the pitch and busting a gut. You know, think about some of the most fan-favourite Liverpool players over the last few years, and I would include Andy Robertson in this. It's people out there who, yes, have talent, but who make every single ounce of their effort every week, and then the talent's there as well. You look at Virgil, and there's no doubt that Virgil is an incredible talent, an incredible centre-back, one of the best to ever do it in the Premier League. But he does have this languid, and I don't use the word lazy because I think it's just his style, way of defending, which is great when things are going well, but you got to be able to get dirty and get your socks dirty and put blocks in and be aggressive. And that penalty he gave away as well was just a piss take. Whether you agree with it or not, it was just a stupid thing to do. So yeah, just loads of things. But I wouldn't be looking to strip the captain of the captain of the armband. But I do want a bit more. I want a few more home truths told by the captain. Itachi, I want to know what Isak might think. Came here to win trophies, to be with the Premier League champions, and now this shit show, and gets no passes. Well, he's also not really had enough time for us to figure it out. You know, of all the players we've signed, he's the one we've seen the least of. obviously because he's working his way back to fitness. Now he has the groin. I don't want to call it a strain because I don't know what it is, but he felt his groin. But, there's also some culpability on him, because if you talk to Newcastle fans, they're saying that he kind of ghosted through the latter part of last season with them as well. And much like we're talking about our poor form from last season seeping into this season, is probably the same for him. Newcastle fans felt like he didn't really show up in the latter part of the season, and we certainly know that after we won the league title, we were up and down all over the shop. So again, I think it's more than just one thing. Right, a couple more things I want to go through. So, Freddie Woodman, according to Paul Gorst, is in line to make his debut against Crystal Palace on Wednesday. So let me know your thoughts on that one. The referees for the game against Aston Villa have been announced, and you're not going to like this one. The referee for the game, Stuart Atwell. The assistant referees, Nicholas Hopton and Craig Taylor. The fourth official, Thomas Bramall. VAR, you know what I'm going to say already, don't you? Paul Tierney. And assistant VAR, Matt Wilkes. So, yeah. It's going to be eventful, shall we say. Also, did you guys see what Transfer News Live posted? That Saudi Arabia is set to construct the world's first Sky Stadium. It will be suspended 1,150 feet above the ground. The venue is expected to open around 2032 and will host matches for the 2034 FIFA World Cup. This has to be one of the most idiotic ideas I've ever seen. And it definitely falls into the category of just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. And best of luck getting, 40, 50,000 fans, 1,150 feet up and down without any issues in and out of stadiums. This just feels like another dick measuring contest, for lack of a better phrase. Iman said, should we try 3-4-1-2 with wing backs, Hugo and Isak up front, Szoboszlai and Ryan midfield, Wirtz as a 10, just missing a centre back for the back three? I think, Iman, we probably need minimum 2 more centre backs in to play that system. Your 3-4-1-2, similar to a 3-5-2, it's a variation. And like I said a few minutes ago, with the personnel that we have in the team, I think it's an understandable question that you've asked. But we're still short centre-backs to do it. But if you look at it, you could easily start to go through that team and figure out a balance of where you get Wirtz involved, where you get Szoboszlai involved, Gravenberch. My big question is, if we bring in another defensive midfielder, and let's say it's a starting defensive midfielder, so an Adam Wharton or somebody of that ilk, what does that do for the sheer numbers we have in midfield? Because if we're going to play with 2 midfielders in front of the back 4, then you've got McAllister, Jones, Szoboszlai, Wirtz, all ahead of them for one position. I think we've too many midfielders at that point. So my argument would be, if we bring in a DM, I think we need to get rid of an 8. And I don't know if you agree with me on that, but 2 DMs, particularly if we're going to play with that, or 2 deep line midfielders, I think you can sacrifice one of your number 8s at that point, because we're just too top heavy. And then you're talking about the likes of Neoni coming through, but Cetic still in there as well. I just don't see everybody getting enough game time at that point. Who would you get rid of? That's the $64,000 question, isn't it? So I'm going to answer your question. You're not going to like my answer, but I'm going to try to justify my answer. McAllister. I say this as an unashamed, absolutely bona fide McAllister fanboy. Bought a signed Argentina shirt and love the man to bits. But if I'm thinking longer term, I'm thinking he probably fancies a spell in the league at some point. I'm thinking he's never going to finish his career at Liverpool. I don't think that's ever been in the plan. And I would say I would rather keep Szoboszlai around, Wirtz around, and I like Jones in because I like having that Scouse heartbeat in the team. So reluctantly, my answer would be McAllister. But it isn't because of an anti-Alexis McAllister. I love him. I just think it's a sensible answer in this situation. And like I said, I say that as an unashamed McAllister fan, but I think it's the right answer if you had to sacrifice one. Shit Crew said, what if the plan for this season was 3 centre-backs? We were supposed to have 4 borderline world-class centre-backs. Teams don't really do that without the intent of playing 3 at the back, surely. So I guess my counter-argument to that would be, if we were to bring in centre-backs to play a 3, surely going for Mark A should have been done way earlier in the summer, because if you're going to have a change of system, you want time to try out that system in pre-season. And there was absolutely no indication throughout pre-season that we were shifting to a back 3. And with how late we left to move for Mark A, I just can't see that would have been the plan. Again, just an opinion though, I can't say this is a fact. The right answer is Salah. Well, how is Salah the right answer to what midfielder would we get rid of? Happy Craigo. Considering he ain't a midfielder. So, again, I know, because you've been on a mad one, wanting rid of Salah for a while, but I don't understand how the answer to what number 8 would you lose if you brought in another defensive midfielder. I'm struggling to figure out how the answer to that question is Salah. But, each to their own. Mohammed Rowan said, updates on Isak injury. So, I did read from the Echo, who had a piece, and they were kind of guessing, I guess, because we're all kind of guessing. They said that he could be in the squad for Wednesday. With Gravenberch, they went further and said Saturday against Aston Villa. But with Isak, they said potentially Wednesday. Now, for me, if there's any soreness or discomfort, I wouldn't be considering Isak for Wednesday. I'd be leaving him go till the weekend. Now, my predicted 11... Actually, do you know what? I need to stop calling it that. My preferred 11 and preview is coming out at 10:45. So, do have a watch of it and let me know what you think. Didn't we want to sell Gomez if Gay came in? Good point, Keane. Yes. I don't know if we wanted to sell him, but we were certainly open to selling him to AC Milan, mate. So, yeah, that's a fair point you've made. And that would, again, I guess, play against the idea of playing with a back 3. Do you think we need to sign a new winger? Yes, I do. Now, this is something I'm saying yes to, but I have to say it's not something I was calling for in the summer. So, I'm not trying to look like the smartest guy in the class here, because I wasn't calling for another winger in the summer. But now that we're seeing that the manager isn't really willing to use Rio Ngamoa as one of the real 6 players, and he's still not giving chances to Chiesa at the start, I think, it would be certainly beneficial to bring in the long-term Salah replacement now. Now, if that long-term Salah replacement isn't available, that's a different conversation. But let's say Semenyo. Would I think if there's a chance we can get Semenyo, we should do it? Yes, I do. For a few reasons. 1, Salah's form. 2, the fact that Rio still needs a bit more time, and I get not blocking the pathway through, but now I think you can make a counter-argument that we still need pace, directness and power. And I would say, if it's available, bring in another wide player now. Do you think Real Madrid, looking at Konate right now, do they still want them? Well, I wouldn't. I'm sorry, that sounds really harsh, but if I'm Madrid and I'm looking at the free centre-back market coming up the end of the season, and I see Upamecano, I see Konate, and I see Mark A, there's no way that Konate is top of the list for me. Not a chance. I'd be kicking down Mark A's door if I was Real Madrid. And I said this weeks ago, surely Madrid aren't blind to this. They have to be seeing how poor Konate has played this season. And I think the camp in Madrid were already split on whether they should bring in Konate or not. So, if you're looking at the free transfer market right now, you'd have to say, you'd probably list them if you're in Madrid shoes, Gay, Konate, Upamecano, in that order. Kalen, Commander, said, has anybody else noticed that at the end of last season and all the pre-season, Gravenberch has played at centre-back during build-up, then stepped into midfield, but then once the season started, Slot scrapped that? He also gave him license to get even further forward. I remember, I think it was after the Newcastle game, Gravenberch came out and said that last season he was a bit more, he had to sit a little bit deeper, whereas this season he's getting more of a license to get forward, which I don't think we can have that luxury anymore. We need somebody shielding that back four. How many more players can we buy to fix this? Well, I don't think just going out and buying players, Paul, is going to fix everything. But I just look at it from a squad deficiency. And you would have to say, in order of priority for me, centre back 1, DM 2, winger 3. That would be, what I'd like to do. Centre back should be bought on the first day the transfer window opens. DM, again, is something we've had long conversations about for a long time on the channel. And the winger is probably more reactionary for me at this moment in time. But yeah, you can't just keep signing players. You have to solve some of these issues from within as well. It's more than fair of you to say. Evan G795 said, I agree the slot needs to give Chiesa more minutes. He's been our second best player behind Szoboszlai, and I think if we sign a winger, it should be Semenyo or somebody like Elise, but that won't happen. So if I'm giving you orders of preference, Elise is number 1. Probably Semenyo. I'll probably have him on a level pegging with Nico Williams as number 2. I think Nico Williams is a better player, but Antoine Semenyo has the Premier League experience. So yeah, I'd say Elise would be the top, but I'd be happy with any of the 3 of them in all honesty. Abigail said, Madrid don't mind, they know Konate's head is turned. Maybe, but I can only say if I was at Madrid and I was looking at this, I'd be concerned, because it's not easy to just flick a switch and get back to being at your best again. And remember, this is Ibrahima Konate playing in a season with a World Cup at the end of it. And he's been in and out of the starting centre-back role for France. So, Didier Deschamps can't be blind to this either, looking at the way Konate is this season. Craig, we seriously should give Endo a chance. He was brilliant in 23-24. I just don't think he's good enough to be a regular starter for us. I don't mind him having the James Milner role. I don't mind him, coming in to see out games, but I just don't think he's good enough to do the role week in, week out. Why would Elise leave the best team in the world to join us? Don't be deluded. So, again, this is where I start to get pissed off at people, mate. At what point did I say he should leave Bayern Munich to join us? And Bayern Munich are far from the best team in the fucking world, mate. Let's, be realistic about that. They're good, but do I think they win the Champions League this year? No. And, I've not been disrespectful to anybody today. And I would appreciate if you drop your deluded chants, especially when you're putting words in my mouth, because I never said he should. I was asked who I would bring in, and I gave you the 3 names. If you don't like it, no problem. But be respectful or leave. Would you be happy if Szoboszlai became the team captain after Van Dijk? Certainly. And, I spoke earlier on about Virgil talking a good game, but not backing it up. Dominic Szoboszlai said in the summer, when Wirtz came in, I'm not giving up my position without a fight. And he's living that. He's fighting tooth and nail to keep that starting spot. And he is head and shoulders our best player this season. So if he was to become the captain after Virgil, of course, I'd have no issue with that, because he leads by example. And he's already a national team captain as well. So yeah, I'd have no issue with that. But I wouldn't be stripping Virgil of the armband. Young lad 46 said, hi Craig, Slot's arrival complemented Klopp's style by adding some much needed control, but increasingly the intensity, work rate and toughness that Klopp instilled has faded, leaving us with this. Mate, if I could take a comment, pin it to the top of the channel and have people look at it, that would probably be it, because every single word you've written is probably how 99.99% of us feel. Exactly as you've said it. You have summarised it magnificently. Because Arne did make some small changes to Klopp's system that did benefit us, and I think gave us some ability to not have injuries. But you're also damn right in what you're saying, in that aggressive nature is gone, and we're not controlling games in the way Arne talked about wanting to with the ball. I agree, mate. Every single word of it is a brilliant comment, young lad, and I dare say I think most people in the chat agree as well. Yeah, what we're left with is this, especially the last part, mate, because what is this? You know, I think that's something we're all striving to figure out right now. I don't know what the fuck this is either that we're looking at right now. That is a perfect comment. It is. It's absolutely spot on, mate. And again, thank you for it, because you know I waffle quite a bit in my assessments and stuff, but honestly, I think you nailed it there, dude. What? Has Brendan Rodgers left Celtic? I didn't see that. Somebody said, has he left Celtic? Brendan Rodgers has left Celtic. Jesus. That's mad. I know they lost to Hearts at the weekend, and I think they're second to Hearts in the league or whatever, maybe third, I'm not sure. But yeah, that's yeah, didn't expect that, to be honest, but I don't really follow Scottish football that much anyway. Queen Nadra said, is it true that SALAH would absent in the game tomorrow? Oh, I've no idea. I don't know of anything to say SALAH won't be there for the game tomorrow. I can't think of a reason why he wouldn't be. Now, usually they wheel out the assistant managers for the press conferences for the League Cups. But I don't know of anything to say Arne won't be there tomorrow. Unless, you know, there's something, he's got an illness or something that he's not feeling well that we don't know about. And if that's the case, obviously you want him to be healthy as soon as possible. I'm not aware of anything. Wow. So Romano just said, Brendan Rodgers has left Celtic Football Club with immediate effect, decision made. I'm going to just send this to me mate Jimbo, who is a massive Celtic fan. I'm sure he knows, but just in case, I'm going to forward it on to him. Right, let's check in on our poll. So, I asked you, who would you rather have? Konate on a new deal, Upamecano, or neither? So, we only need 28 more votes to get this to 1,500. So, if you haven't had a vote, please do. Also, if I could be cheeky and ask you to hit that like button for me. I'm very much enjoying this stream tonight. As you can tell, I probably came in a little bit less combative than I was last night, because I'm feeling a hell of a lot better today. Shoulder is 80% back to normal, and head cold is disappearing, so I'm starting to feel like a human being again. But yeah, do have a vote on that one if you haven't already, because I didn't expect the answer that we're going to give. Rodgers looking for a return to Liverpool? Nah, pass. No, thank you. Apparently Martin O'Neill for the Celtic job. Is that right? One of my mates said Martin O'Neill. So keep an eye. I don't know if he's just winding me up or something, but yeah, just keep an eye on that one. Right, so after 1,500 votes, we asked, who would you rather have? Konate signed a new deal, Upamecano, or neither? And 48% of you guys said neither, which is very telling, right? Because it feels like one of them is an option, whether it is a new deal for Konate or Upamecano. And for what it's worth, where would I be on it? You know what? I'm going to be honest. I'm not reactionary. I'm saying I'd rather a new deal for Konate than neither. Now, I'm not saying he deserves a huge new deal based off what we're seeing, but I would rather keep Konate and bring in another centre back. So let's say we signed Mark Gay at the end of the season. I'd rather have Leone, Gay, Van Dijk, and Konate, knowing that Van Dijk has one more year left, and then you've got Gay, Leone, Konate, and somebody else. So I would say new deal for Konate in those options, because I think if it's none of them, then we've got two holes to fill. You know, so that would be my answer for what it's worth. Wonder Kenshin said, get Bastoni in would be a brilliant signing for Liverpool. Him and Leone would be great. Oh, dude, dare I say, 99% of the chat would take Bastoni, and I'd be included in that in a heartbeat. I just don't see it being realistic. So, Ben Jacobs put out a story earlier on. Nathan Collins is a good shout, Frank, but the thing about Nathan Collins is I think he has 5 or 6 years left on his deal with an option of 2 for Brentford. Plus, he's been made Brentford captain. But I'm don't disagree with you. I think Nathan Collins would be a very good player. So Ben Jacobs has written a piece about Turkish Football Federation, and this is truly mind-blowing. So the Turkish Football Federation confirmed that 371 of 571 officials have betting accounts, with 152 of them actively gambling. One official has placed 18,227 bets on football. 7 referees and 15 assistants come from Turkey's top 2 divisions. Over 1,000 games have been gambled on. The president of the Turkish Football Federation has vowed to take action. If we want to bring Turkish football to the place it deserves, we have to clean up whatever dirt there is. TFF rules allow for a ban of up to a year, but FIFA can impose a 3-year suspension and impose a fine of close to 100,000. Lads, what the fuck is going on in football? Like, you know, that's astounding that many officials are gambling on football in Turkey. That is absolutely astounding, that number. I can't even fathom it. Yeah, wow. United were never this bad. This club is about to collapse. We're financially unstable, and our players have said they don't want to play anymore this season. So literally every word you've written there is bullshit, mate. Every single word of it. United were never this bad. Really? I mean, come on, dude. This at our worst is what, 7th? And United finished where last year? 15th, 16th? So that's wrong. This club is about to collapse. We're financially unstable. Couldn't be further from the truth. Very, very stable financially. Even have the ability to go and spend more money if we need to. And the players said they don't want to play anymore this season. Did they? Can you point me to those quotes, please? Where the players said they didn't want to play anymore this season. Yeah, that's just bullshit. I don't even know what else to say. Yeah, just go away. It's just absolute nonsense. I think Murillo would be great next summer. I really like him. Some shot power on him, and isn't the tallest, but is strong and quick. I don't think he's been spoken about enough. He's been spoken about as an option, certainly. You're talking about 80 million quid, though. And, Forest's owner is not the easiest to deal with, shall we say. When you see Morgan Gibbs-White maybe wanting to head off, and then there was potential lawsuits coming from Marinakis, I would say Murillo would be a difficult one to get out. But as a player, he's a very good defender. Tika Mo Salah said he's rage baiting. Yeah, but the problem with rage baiting is there has to be some semblance of credibility to what you're saying. Like, you know me, I like to blow me top and get angry about stuff, but when you're reading a comment that is just like Johan the storyteller, one bullshit comment after another, you can't take that even seriously. Do you think this Liverpool team will bounce back in the next few weeks? I don't know. I think over the course of time, yes. I think we are too good to be playing this bad, and the personnel are too good to be playing this bad overall. Don't know. Like, some of it, yes, it's going to be a continuity thing. It's going to be a repetition thing. It's going to be building relationships on the pitch thing. But there are other parts of it that are effort, tactics. So, a couple of weeks, do we bounce back? Don't know, because it's not like we've a handy run of games either. But it's going to make or break Arne Slot's time at Liverpool, I think, the next few weeks. And for me, he has till the end of that Manchester City game before the international break. And if it isn't sorted and we don't see clear signs of improvement by then, and we've lost a couple more games, I'm probably going to utter those words that I've never uttered on here before, which is, I think it's time to sack the manager. But I'm not there quite yet. Midas Media said the slot Dubai trip was crazy. Seen a lot of people saying it. It is beyond crazy to me, dude. Like, of course somebody wants to spend time with their family. Absolutely no issue with any of that. But, you know, bring your family over to Liverpool for a weekend, or take a weekend to go to the Netherlands or something. But a jolly up to Dubai when your team's just off the back of 3 losses at that point. United coming up after the international break, and you've just spent almost £500 million, and we're looking this bad. I just don't think it's a good look to be heading off to Dubai and a jolly up like. And I've seen many people call it out, and I'm glad they did, because nobody wants to begrudge anybody but an or and all. But let's remember, this is October, after he's just had a summer of celebration. It's not like we're February and everyone's already exhausted. The season's barely got going. And he should have been at the AXA solving problems, not sunning himself in Dubai. So I don't care if he was on the laptop every day by the pool or whatever. He should have been watching the under-21s and the 18s. He should have been working with the players that were still at the AXA. He should have been sitting there with his coaches trying to figure it all out. And it just doesn't send a good message. It just doesn't. All the players were on international duty whilst he was in Dubai. Well, no, they weren't. A lot of them were, but not all of them. But again, I don't understand what your point is. So that's a time where he could have been watching some of these guys. He could have been looking at the 21s and 18s to see who was worth coming through. And he certainly should have been trying to formulate a plan with his coaches to figure this shit out. You know, just because there's an international break doesn't mean he gets a holiday. The season is August to May. So the players aren't on a holiday when they're on international duty. They're off playing for their countries. So I think it's incumbent on our manager to work through this as well. Chelsea spent 600 million 22-23 and finished 12th. Right. Had they just won the league the season before? No, probably not. I don't know. I think the point you're trying to make is that it's not unusual for a team to, you know, be disjointed afterwards. But, you know, I'm not a Chelsea fan, so I don't remember watching Chelsea at that point and thinking whether they, you know, had too many changes or not. But ultimately, I don't feel like the players we've brought in justifies the fall off, because look at what we brought in this summer. You know, I can't for the life of me remember every player Chelsea signed back then, but we've brought in Wirtz, Ekatike, we've brought Wirtz, Ekatike, Frimpong, Kirkes, Isak. You know, it's hardly untested bums that we're bringing in. You know, we brought in top quality players for top dough that are supposed to push us on from the level we were at, not building for the future. It was a part of build for the future, but also here and now players. Since the appointment of our assistant manager, it doesn't improve us any. That's fair. Again, I don't want to put this on Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's shoulders, but you know, it's certainly another change there to the setup. Arne went for quality and not the players he needed. So for me, mate, I'm not trying to second guess you, but I don't want to be a hypocrite about this. I don't remember sitting here in the summer and complaining about the signings we made. So I'm not going to do it now. I think I was excited about the signings we made as I am now. Didn't think the fall off was going to be as much. The only thing I think most of us would be critical of is we didn't get the centre back in. But again, there's not one of those signings that I'm going to sit here and say I was unhappy with, or that I called out at the time. I was really happy about all of them. Midas Media said, if you got Gay, you'd probably be playing a back three, and I reckon you might be much stronger defensively. I don't think we would. I think we'd be playing Konate and Gay, or excuse me, Van Dijk and Gay, and Konate be dropped. Because like I said, there was no pre-season of playing a back three, and you're not going to just do something at the start of the season without having drilled it in pre-season. So if we wanted to play a back three, like I said earlier on, centre-back would have been one of the first things you brought in the summer window to make sure you had all summer to work with changing that system. Craig, for the manager to go home to Holland for a 4-day visit, family, absolutely no issue. But this Dubai jolly doesn't sit well with me. As you said, should have been working with the players in the AXA. So, Jay Cliff, I'm with you. 4-day trip back to the Netherlands, see his family, absolutely sound. Understandable. I think maybe his daughter had exams or something. I don't think any of us, dude, would have had anything negative to say about that. Or bring the family over to you, whatever. But yeah, a jolly up to Dubai, it's just not a good look, is it? Tripsy Dub said, Craig, I really thought Slot would use the international break to sort things out instead of still using the low block thing as an excuse. I remember, mate, for as derided as Brendan Rodgers has been, I remember in 13-14 him saying he was sitting around the kitchen table trying to figure out what to do to get things going in the right direction. And then he found a system that got the best of the Suarez, and we had that mad 13-14 season where we came up just short at the end of it. And that's exactly what I was expecting here from Arne. Because, you know, if I was in his position, and I dare say if you were in his position, I wouldn't. Not only would I not be going to Dubai, I wouldn't be able to sleep. I would be stressed to the nines trying to figure out how on earth this is happening and what I can do to put it right. Every waking moment of my day would be spent trying to figure out what I can do right with this to sort it out, because from a self-pride perspective, to have won the league, got these players and be looking so far off it, I'd be embarrassed. I'd be embarrassed. And I certainly wouldn't be coming out with this low block bullshit nonsense like it's somehow illegal for teams to be direct. No. That's basic football. Be better. You know, he goes on about it like teams play differently against us than they do against other teams. And what's the point? Be better. Sort it out. Figure it out. If you can't deal with basic long balls, throw-ins and set pieces, then you're at the wrong club, fella. You know, this is top-level football. We're talking about dealing with the basic shit that kids learn at 8, 9, 10 years of age. Certainly when we're talking about top-level international quality defenders, dealing with long throw-ins and set pieces should not really be an Achilles heel. And then to have the cheek to talk about the other end of the pitch and a low block. Where was the low block when United scored in 62 seconds? They didn't come out to play a low block. They fucking ran at us and scored. You know, telling teams we can't defend set pieces and then being surprised when they come straight at us with long throw-ins, directness and set pieces, it's faulty tower stuff. Like, it's definitely up there with some of the most ridiculous quotes I've seen from a Liverpool manager in a long time. Imagine saying out loud to the media, we can't defend and deal with set pieces. We don't know what to do to stop it. Like, how do you say that out loud? Todd said, opinion on Mamardashvili. Jury's out. Jury's out, mate. There is some things that he's done well, some things that he can do better. How much of it is down to experience and rhythm, I'm not sure. Never really going to have many problems with Georgie as a shot stopper. But put it this way, the Bryan and Balmo goal for Manchester United, I would bet my life that isn't going in if Alisson's in goal, because it's not like it was a well-played shot. Alisson saves that, in my opinion. He does. And there's been a couple of others as well that I feel if Ali was in, that would have been a different outcome. But I don't think it would be fair of me to have a fully fledged opinion on Mamardashvili at the minute, because, you know, he's still earning his stripes. Andrew Weasley said, this is going to sound harsh, but our manager's weak mentality is shining through squad efforts. Look, I don't know what he's like behind closed doors, of course, because I ain't in that dressing room, but I know when I see him and see some of the comments after matches, I'm just shaking my head saying, dude, you're saying this stuff out loud, like, this is embarrassing. Craig, do you think Slot would be trying harder this season if he hadn't won the league last season? Um, Probably. Uh, I mean, if he hadn't won the league last season and we were where we are now, I'm more kind of asking myself, would he be in a job if he hadn't won the league last season? Like, how much of the extenuating circumstances is still keeping him in his position with the loss of Diogo and the impact that that's had on everyone? With the fact that we did win the league, the fact that we had a huge summer spend. Um, I'll tell you this. If we didn't win the league last year and we had the form he's shown now, I would be sitting here saying, time to go. Yeah, I think the fact that he's won the league gives him a bit more grace, and I don't know how much more I have left before I'm gonna put my hand up and say I've seen enough. But if he hadn't won the league last year, I think I'd be saying it right now. Craig, do you think we should sack Slot if he loses the next game? We should get an Italian manager, tend to do well in the Prem. So not the next game, because it's a League Cup game against Palace, and like I said, always, even at the best of times, this is one of those where you don't know what to expect, how much of a team change to expect. I would say though, mate, if we lose two of the next three after that, between Real Madrid, Villa and Manchester City, then yes, I would say I'm going to be at a point where I think it's time to sack him. And I really, really, really don't say that lightly, because I've never ever sat on this channel in the whole time I've done content and asked for managers to be fired. But if he can't stop the rot with the talent he has, it's an Arne problem and not a team problem. Maxime de Kuiper or Zeno de Bast, who's the better left back? I haven't watched the second one, so I like de Kuiper. I said this in the summer. I think his age would have gone against why Liverpool may have signed him, because I think he's 27, Maxime de Kuiper, but he's a really good left back. Actually, the one, ironically, that Bournemouth brought in, Truffaut, he seems to be a very good left back as well. The one they brought in to replace Milos. Do you feel our team needs some more fire when we play? I feel we're too calm and no motivation. Todd, yes, absolutely, mate. Aggression, fire, whatever words you want to use. 100% with you, bro. It's whether they are determined inwardly or not, it doesn't look like it, because how many second balls are we not winning? How many duels are we losing? You know, and again, I keep coming back to what Robbo said. If you don't do the hard yards and do the dirty work, all the talent in the world doesn't matter, because everybody is going to go out there and give 100% in this league because it's a competitive league. And you've got to match that and then let your talent shine through and win games. So, yes, I'm with you, mate, on that one. Scotty Boy said, Craig, that thing about Slot was a fake account, not in the dugout on Wednesday. I didn't think it made any sense, Scotty, to be honest. I couldn't see her, unless he was ill, I couldn't see a reason why he wouldn't be. So, but cheers for clearing that up, man. Appreciate that. Is it T. Henry or Thenry? So, Craig, do you think that Jota's death is also impacting form, as well as the new players that played under Klopp are being affected while struggling to sell? Of course, mate. Look, any conversation that we have this season, you have to take into account the passing of Diogo. And what I'm about to say next is a very difficult balance to strike, and I'm not really sure if I'm going to word this correctly, so please bear with me. But as much as we can sit here and say we use it as an excuse, or we use it as part of the reason why we're not as good, you could equally sit here and make an argument as to why we should use it in a positive sense, to take that pain and do it in memory of Diogo. So when we won the first 5 or 6 games, there was no excuse of the Diogo situation. But now when we're in a slump, naturally it comes to the forefront of your thoughts a little bit more. So I've said this over and over again. If there are a couple of players in that dressing room, and you know, by the levels of probability there must be, that are struggling, as a fan, I promise you, I have no problem with them being given extra time or with those guys being given a break to get help to work through it. I'm a human being at the end of the day, and these guys are human beings, and football is a game. Losing a teammate and a brother, if that's impacting you in a very negative way, as a fan, I am 100% for giving them time. But if you're seeing somebody in that dressing room that's struggling and you're still continuing to play them, then I don't think it's an excusable thing. You need to take those tough decisions if you're seeing people struggling, and that's what leadership there is about. So let's use Mo as an example, because we've seen emotionally Mo be upset at the start of the season. If Mo is struggling, take him out of the firing line. I just say give him till the AFCON if he needs to work through what he needs and get the help that he needs. I promise you, I mean that. But it doesn't sit right with me it being used solely as an excuse, because it can be both. It can be an excuse and it can be a motivator. And I'd like to think, with the brain power that we have and the psychologists available, leveraging it in a positive sense should be the aim. And I don't mean positive that he died. I mean positive to do it in memory of, to inspire you for him. Same way when Klopp was leaving at the end of the season. The lads went out on a limb to try and do it for Klopp in that last year and kind of ran themselves into the ground. So, and a long-winded thing, but I wanted to make sure I tried to get the balance right, because I'm not trying to be insensitive about it at all. Update on Alisson's injury. Other side of the November international break, from what I understand at this moment in time, mate. Paul Driscoll said, Jota's passing not only affects form, it affects team togetherness. Grief emotions are so profound and affect people at different levels and stages. The feelings are often irrational, yet no less real. Mate, I know. And I'm not trying to be condescending with that, but I know. My mother killed herself. My dad drank himself to death. I'm an only child. I've been there. I've been through it. And I've been through it on my own. So, well, apart from my missus. So I know only too well, and I can sit here now, all these years later, and there's still days where I'm all over the shop about it. So I totally understand what you're saying, but I don't like excuses. I don't. It's sport. If you're not, in the same way, if you're carrying a niggle, I don't want you out there on the pitch if you can't play to 100%. Same mentally. If you're not mentally 100%, you shouldn't be going out there on the pitch, because, it's detrimental to everybody around you and yourself. Chris Wood said, Salah feels Jota lost for sure, as well as new lads coming in. Yeah, the new lads coming in, it must have been a very strange circumstance to walk into, because you don't have that same connection to Diogo, obviously, but you're aware of what your new teammates have just suffered in that loss, and the feeling around the club must have been a very strange time for those new guys coming in. No doubt about that whatsoever. Chill Edit said, if Alisson gets back from injury, we'll still concede since our defence is thrash. Yeah, but at least Alisson, like I said, would probably have prevented some of these goals. I certainly feel that Brian and Mboma one in particular, Alisson stops that. Craig, do you think Areola would want to leave a performing Bournemouth? Respectfully, yes. Bournemouth are doing great, he's doing great, and they deserve all the plaudits that come their way. But, you've got a manager there who was managing Rayo Vallecano, went to Bournemouth. Do you not think if the opportunity came to manage a team in the Champions League most seasons, challenging realistically for the league and other competitions with the talent that we have at our disposal, that he'd jump at that? No disrespect to Bournemouth, but come on, 100%. Any of us would in his position, If you were a Bournemouth manager and you were offered the Liverpool job, you're taking it. Linda said, I think the fans singing Diogo's name the 20th minute is having an impact on our players. Maybe stop now. We're all still shocked. So one thing I said, Linda, over the summer was, it must have been so hard for the players, because every pre-season game they played and every start of the season, every ground they went to, everybody wanted to show their love and respect for Diogo and Andre. So it must have been like a new grieving process every time these guys went out to play a friendly. Remember the Preston North End one and how brilliant Preston were. And all these things were done with love for Diogo and of respect to Liverpool Football Club. But, you know, you just think of the players having to face that every single time as well. It must have been very mentally trying for them. Because, you know, fans from opposition clubs are only trying to be kind and courteous and show respect. But it's like reliving it all the time. Now, it's not for me to say about the fans singing in the 20th minute or not. You know, I think, honestly, I think it is a lovely thing to do. And I think if we were winning, we wouldn't be talking about it as maybe having a negative impact. Do I rate McKenna for us? Kieran McKenna? No, I don't. Too big of a jump to go from Ipswich to Liverpool with the money we've spent. And that's why I'm even 100% unsure on the Iriola thing, because, you know, that is a big jump up to make. Maybe Diogo's song in every game is given pressure, just maybe. Look, it's something I don't think we can realistically answer because, you know, we're not out there on the pitch, but it's a really difficult conversation to even have, isn't it? Because if you were the players and it was negatively impacting you, how do you come out in public and say that to the fans or to anyone? Because it's all been done from a loving place and a respectful place. So even at that would be a very difficult... It'd have to be behind the scenes kind of conversation to be had, wouldn't it? Right, this one from Silverbear, 1971, said, have read today players and in particular Virgil are fuming with SALAH over Kirke's professionalism off and on the pitch. Have you heard about this? I haven't, mate. No, I'm not saying you're right or wrong, but I'm just answering that I haven't heard about it. I don't really know. I don't follow Miloš off the pitch, and I know he's into a bit of gaming and that, and he streams a bit, I think, but wouldn't have a clue. But what I would say is, if that is a concern, then that comes down to the recruitment team, in my opinion, because we know under Jurgen that they looked as much into the personality and the lifestyle of players as well as the ability. So if, and I don't know, there is any question about his professionalism, that to me is a problem that the recruitment team should have sorted out and figured out. So I wouldn't be blaming SALAH on that. I would come that to the recruitment team because that is something that should have been unearthed if it's a problem. Simeone, no, he's a football terrorist, David. Don't want Diego Simeone anywhere near Liverpool. I was going to say I'd pull my hair out watching him, but no thanks. CM Footballer said, do you think FSG are actually considering alternative management options should things continue to go downhill, or do you think they're quite relaxed? I wouldn't have a clue, bro. I've asked myself that very question, but truth is, it's been a long time since I've seen FSG have to act to remove a manager. And at that point, there wasn't really many questions about whether it was the right or wrong thing to do. It had to be done. How much good grace they give Arne, how much leniency they give because of the passing of Diogo, how much the data shows that maybe this is a bedding in process and that we've been a little bit unlucky. There are lots of factors that come into it, and we know that they're not emotionally reactive people. They will look into the metrics, the data, and lots of other things outside of the results. So truth is, no idea at what point they would push the panic button, but I hope we don't get to find out. But like I said, I can only tell you where I'm at, and for me, if he loses 2 of the next 3 games after Wednesday, so Aston Villa, City, Real Madrid, if he loses 2 of those 3, it's bye-bye time for me. What do you think our chances are against Crystal Palace? We haven't done too well against them lately. So actually on the too well against them lately stuff, I actually look, because part of the preview that we do, we do the latest games against them. So yes, this season hasn't been good for us, and yes, they beat us in the League Cup final. But last season we beat them at Selhurst Park and we drew with them at Anfield. But Wednesday, it's so tough to predict because I don't know how strong either manager is going to go. But I would dare say they're going to be, whoever the players are, they're going to be better drilled in their system than we will. So, my preview is coming out in 15 minutes for that game. So have a watch of it and let me know what you think of the suggested 11. But I'll give you my prediction. I think we're going to win on penalties. I think it'll be a draw and then we'll win on penalties. But I say that with more hope than confidence. He may be one of the best at handball, but Simeone is something else. Taking Athletic up to 2 Champions League finals and 2 La Ligas without Messi, Ronaldo, or something else. He's great. It's a style thing with me, mate. It's a style thing with Simeone. Like, even under Rafa Benitez, and he won us the Champions League, there were times where I hated the style of football. It was effective, particularly away from home in Europe. I just don't think Simeone is the right type of character for us. But he has been effective at Atleti. Of course, we'll take a fool to not admit that. Just for me, mate, it's just this stylistic thing more than anything. Safine said, Craig, when VVD eventually leaves 1-2 seasons, who do you think replaces him? I have 2 options, Schlotterbeck, Bastoni. I think I know more of Bastoni than Schlotterbeck, so Bastoni would be great. But I don't know is the honest answer. I guess we're going to find that out over the next 6 months, probably. And by that, I don't mean Virgil will be gone. I mean, have a look at the next centre-back we bring into the club. If it's Mark Gay, I think we have our answer. Everybody wanted to bench Szoboszlai. What was the reason he became the best player this season, Craig, and what's your opinion? So you can discount me from that because I wasn't on the bench Szoboszlai camp whatsoever. Never have been, never will be, always rated him as a player. What changed? He settled into it. He was given time and he got used to the league. I see a lot of similarities with Szoboszlai and Wirtz when they first came in. Things just not happening at the same speed they were used to. Thought process being right, but just the execution not there. Physicality took a bit of time to get used to. I think Dominic Szoboszlai should be a great example as to why some players need patience. And I think that's why I'm so adamant that Wirtz will be fine. Just, a bit frustrating at the minute we're not there yet. What about Southgate to replace Slot? I'll delete the channel. No joke, no ha-ha chuckles. I will delete the channel. I won't want anything to do with watching Gareth Southgate, Pizza Hut, FC. No, thank you. Jesus, no. No. And again, not a Liverpool manager. Very nice man by all accounts, but God, no. Billy Beckner said, Szoboszlai just proves competition is good. He knew Wirtz was coming in and would threaten a starting spot, so Szoboszlai worked hard to earn a spot and has earned a starting spot. Yeah. Talk the talk and walk the walk. Would I take Ange? No. I mean, defensively, we're suspect now, mate. You imagine if Ange came in? No, I wouldn't. Do you know what? If I could honestly say to you what I'd like to happen, I would like Arne Slot to follow through on his praise of Luis Enrique's PSG and play like that. Because if we were to do that, if we really did commit, if the press really was there, if we were as aggressive as we were and we were as proficient at moving the ball through the lines, I think we'd be a far better team. And we all expected maybe that was the style of play we were going to get this season, but we haven't. Why did Arne change the team from 1-5-1? I can't give you the answer to that, mate, but I can tell you it frustrated many of us. Amteki said, I think a lot of the frustration is to change something. Also, drop somebody, change tactics to make things better, and that is not happening. So, the frustration has just come from two things. Results have dropped off. But most importantly for me, mate, there hasn't been one performance this season where I've thought we looked brilliant. I knew against Frankfurt they weren't going to be great and we should be beating them easily. But apart from that, 30 minutes against Atletico Madrid, I think we looked well. But it's that for me. From February, March onwards, I don't remember us really playing well. How about Eddie Howe? Sorry, I'm laughing because I'm trying to answer it and say that I don't want Jason Tindall. Because Eddie Howe's done a great job at Newcastle. Seems like a brilliant manager as well. But could I look at Jason Tindall in a Liverpool tracksuit on the sidelines? Probably not. But Eddie Howe's a really good coach. Right, ladies and gents, I'm going to say good night. I'm going to go and prep for tomorrow because we've got the podcast and a few other things coming up. The preview video is going to be out in the next 8 minutes or so. So do let me know what you think of that if you have a watch of it. We'll be recording the podcast tomorrow. That episode will be out tomorrow night. We'll have a news video tomorrow evening and a stream as always. And then, of course, we've got the game coming up on Wednesday. This was a really fun stream. I really did enjoy chatting with you all. Cheers for everybody coming in a good humour as well. I thought the chat flowed really well and it was a very fun evening. So thank you for that. And I'll see you tomorrow.